meeting night. I'm going to very quickly turn our committee meeting over to the head of the Transportation Committee, Chris Nicely.
Thank you, Madam President. I have two announcements to make tonight as we begin preparations for street closing this spring. One of them will be for the Earth Day celebration on April 22nd. This is an annual event. It occurred last year on East Washington Street. This year, the suggestion is that the celebration will be on East Union Street between College and Court, with plans to shut the street down on about at 4 p.m., excuse me, noon to 10 p.m. on April 22nd. So I thought I would bring that up. This has been discussed with Ron Lucas, our Assistant Service Safety Director, and he does not see a problem with this. He's been working with the student group that is helping organize it. Any comments or questions? Mayor Weil.
This, of course, this was done a couple of years. Last year was done in Washington, I believe. Previous years had been done in front of on Union, and I think the only difference I see is extended hours into the evening a little bit more, if I'm reading it correctly. And again, this is.
And I think that what the plan is that the East Union Street will give them a little bit more room. There was a good turnout last year, and in fact it was pretty cramped, and then I think there was some interference then with people leaving at the end of the day to get out of the municipal parking garage. So this will avoid that problem, the new location. Okay. The second closing is another annual event that's part of Athens, the International Street Fair planned this year for May 21st. And I've had a brief conversation with the international office at the university, or the person who is organizing that, and there are no changes intended, but they want to begin to move that through for the street closing on the May 21st date then. And that is Court Street closing from the Armory on up to...
I think it goes from... I don't think we go all the way to the Armory. We go to West State, I think.
West State.
State Street to Union, I think.
Okay.
2 blocks.
Okay. Another one of those well-attended events and by the community, and really a good venture. So we'll move forward with that then. Are there any other miscellaneous items for transportation? Mayor Weil.
This kind of falls under transportation. It could be under city services. We are, of course, trying to work on the Circle Drive, which is at the University Health Center. We have a $400,000 ARC grant on that. The preliminary surveying and engineering, and Paula can always correct me if I'm wrong on this, requires us to get 2 parcels of land for right-of-way. One parcel is .030 acres. The other one is, let's see if I can find it here, permanent easement, .003 acres. We have been in discussion with the owners of these properties, and part of the discussion, of course, goes to the assessment that we discussed in the ordinance a year and a half ago. They are willing to donate the property. They just don't want to be assessed. I would like to see if we could do that to get it expedited. My concern, of course, is that the ARC Appalachian Region Commission may be teetering as an organization, but I think the money's in place. But at the same time, I don't think if we let it run through the process of acquisition of land, which requires, of course, a state assessment, a give and take, if I understand correctly, between the property owners, and then, of course, various acts of council, it may take longer. The difference, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, the difference, we also have temporary easements in place that need to be put in place too, but they are temporary. In terms of cost between what we're getting from the ARC, what's been contributed by United University Health Center, I think, I forget the title.
University Healthcare and Retirement Center.
Okay.
Previously called Hickory Creek.
I could keep calling it Hickory Creek for all I care. They contributed quite a bit already, 74, I think it is. 70,000?
78,000. I have a map here, and I don't know if they can capture it or not, that shows in pink is what will be the permanent easements that they'll have to transfer to the city. This action all has to take place prior to construction beginning, and we're looking at a targeting date of July 1st. If we go through the appraisal process and the assessment and what have you, it will not be built this year. And we do run the risk of losing the $400,000 grant that we have available. And that's, secured now. University Healthcare and Retirement Community Center is donating this large pink swath. The smaller ones are from the immediately impacted adjoining property owners, and in the, I would call it yellow or neon, are the temporary easements for the work in order to be constructed. And the work is being done now, the title work is being done, and then the letters will be sent next week regarding donation of property.
But really, I'm bringing it to you because, again, the dialogue was in a whereas that we would do an assessment process, and I feel that it's probably more important to expedite this whole activity. I know I had a conversation with the Finance Personnel Committee before on this, and I wanted to bring it to everybody on council. Again, this is the nursing home complex, and it's going to be adding jobs, but that's peripheral to the road, but the road, as you know, if you've driven up and down it, needs to be closer to two entrances just for safety's sake. And I just want your assurances, or rather your nod on it, one way or the other.
Do you want some action of a formal sort?
Do we need action?
Well, what will occur is, like I say, the property owners are going to be receiving the letters requesting the donation. That should happen by a week's time from now. So even if it's an amendment to the previous one or a resolution that states we'll accept the donation in lieu of an appraisal so that we can proceed this year.
You want us to do that next week?
That'd be great.
Okay. Can we do that then? One meeting resolution, provided everybody has their say. Yeah. Okay.
My question is, do both of these properties have frontage on Columbus Road?
This one rear piece of Ginger's, the dentist owns, it's just on Circle Drive. Same thing with Parfit. Now Ginger has another piece of property.
So a building where they're actually going to have access in and out, they would not need Circle Drive? They currently have access in the front?
Yes, actually, no, wait a second.
What I'm saying, I guess, is the improvement road, potential new development down the line, Ginger has an undeveloped lot
Okay.
down there. Parfit, I assume, would just access from where he's been accessing.
And the second question is, do we know what the estimated cost would be to forego the assessment? It seems like such a small area that it wouldn't...
What I've heard from Andy Stone, city engineer, is that the cost to go through the appraisal process will pretty much offset what we would receive back based on that. So.
We're talking about less than, what is it, 3/100ths of an acre in one case, and 3/1000ths of an acre in another case. So they're little slivers, really.
54
No, right here.
for university healthcare. I mean, again,
Yeah, they've got the major portion of it.
I've shared that they'll be
Is that
giving to you.
0.54, like half an acre? Is that what you said?
No, you want to look over this column right here.
Oh, it doesn't matter, I just have...
Yeah.
They have
Trying to
six,
clarify
they're having
before.
6/10ths of an acre.
Okay.
Point zero,
Okay.
gross take right
Yep.
there, permanent. 0.637.
Okay.
That's a lot of that, and they're the ones who benefit the most from it.
So to summarize, we have a city right-of-way that will not accommodate a modern road, and so in order to do it, we've been through this many times. I don't know if anybody has a strong objection to the ordinance.
Well, and I think that, if I'm understanding right, Mayor Law, what you're saying is that accepting the donation of the land then allows us to move forward in a timely fashion in order to utilize the Appalachian Regional Commission grant and not jeopardize losing it. So that's,
Yes.
okay. Seems to make sense, and am I seeing nods?
I have one clarifying question.
Councilmember Cosney.
So I was under the impression when we passed this, was it a year and a half ago or so, that the assessment process would be for most of the length of Circle Drive,
It will be.
and this is only for the properties in question.
This is for where we will actually be working and having
But
to...
the assessment would still be in place for the remaining properties on Circle Drive.
Probably not.
It wouldn't happen at all.
Again, that would impact the construction start date and would be the process that would be not happening this year.
The only thing I would like before we would move forward with that would be an estimated cost
The cost that we'd have to bear.
due to having this not go through assessment.
You mean no appraisal, what would it cost without doing the appraisal process?
Right.
And you had those numbers, I believe.
We can put it in the acceptance.
Okay.
We'll do
I'll
that while you're
try to
scouring
crunch
it
some
up.
numbers with Andy and
And it'll
then
be in
get
there,
that
so
out to you in advance. So.
That gets her off the hook with all her papers.
Okay. Any other items for the Transportation Committee?
The only other one, of course, is that we're reviewing the bus routes, I believe, and that will be a process that's going on. Eventually, there'll be public hearings on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Finished?
Evening, this is the Finance and Personnel Committee. You can chime in both Sherry and I, right, Sherry? Okay, so we have a number of appropriations. I believe I might have handed them to Debbie already, which puts me at a slight disadvantage. One thing we would like to do, the service director asked to have, thank you, money put in a line so that she can spend money for the tree commission. Generally, boards and commissions have small amounts of money in their lines, and so that would be part of the incoming appropriations ordinance. It's going to come up next time. And then the other thing on that appropriation, we will be also taking money from the TIF. We can run this through, as I recall, the full 3 readings, right? The money from the TIF into the school share, into the East State Street Debt Fund. That's another. Then we have, we'll be accepting in that appropriation ordinance, unless there's a problem, $1.5 million for Richland 682 ODOT grant funds. That may not, I think there was some discussion of that. And then the Hickory Creek AHCRC grant and administration, will be appropriating that money. And appropriating money for the Mill Street project, and appropriating money to 248 transaction class 304. I believe it is the CDBG, Administration and Fair Housing piece of the CDBG money. Okay. So we'll be moving money into lines so that we can do this year's business. ARC grants, CDBG, ODOT, and the only thing that's really local is the TIF funds, of which we're moving money around to pay our school share and to pay our debt on East State Street. So that's basically what's going on. Plus, in addition to that, a $4,000 Shade Tree Commission amount. And now I have to see what's attached. It's done. Never mind. It's taken care of. Forget the Shade Tree Commission. It's already done.
I was a little bit puzzled. What was happening was the money was in the tree boards and commission fund line. It just needed to be cut down to the different transaction classes.
We had asked about that. It was just on my notes from the other day. And then the other thing, and I'll ask Kathy if she has anything she'd wish to add, we have to fast track and put some money in our property tax line. Specifically, we own houses on Blackburn Hill, the Metropolitan Housing Authority funded, Metropolitan Housing Authority manages them for us. They're low and moderate income, and we need to pay property taxes on those, and so we need to move money into that fund. And then also station apartments, we need to move property tax into that line. And the property and the station apartments, Athens Station project, we own the land, and so we're not quite the equivalent of the university and the mall where they own the land, but we have to pay property tax on that as well. So those monies will need to be moved so we can pay our taxes by the scheduled date. Okay. Then in addition to that, we need to appropriate money for laws that are currently online for the supplement. And so we'll be transferring money, approximately $4,000 from cable access to the general fund, city council line. And that's what's going to happen in the 2 appropriation ordinances next time.
One will have to be fast-tracked, I believe.
That was the latter one with the sales tax, with the
Real estate tax.
real estate taxes and the laws that go online. Some questions? Everybody thoroughly confused? It isn't that confusing.
Just to mention a point, some of the money we're putting in here, we changed the policy a little bit with Andy Stone. We're not going to appropriate money for some of the projects and some of the issues until we get there. So when you talk about the Mill Street issues and other projects, rather than have them kind of trickle in one place, we're going to wait until we get those things moved in. In terms of the real estate tax, probably was a miscalculation on my numbers, or they just, one of the fund lines just got moved over somehow.
Yeah. It's a small matter because we knew we had to pay it. We have to pay it.
Yes.
Kathy, anything you want to add?
No,
Okay.
you did a great job, and Mayor, you were exactly right. Seems like every year we miss a little bit of property taxes, and they weren't missed entirely, just not enough, or maybe one was, but anyway, 3 out of 42 bills, I think we're doing pretty good.
So we've taken care of all the minor problems that have to be taken care of.
I
Go
have
ahead.
a few additions, and that will be, we finally got the engineering plans for the fire escape repair, but I know that it's going to require additional money.
Okay.
So I'd like it to be mentioned again so that we know that that's
How
coming.
much are we talking about?
It could be in...
Should I hang on to the top?
No, we're hopeful that it'll come in around 25, and I think you
Oh,
gave us about
25.
12 last year, so we'll just need to add to
That's
that.
modest.
And then we heard today that the bus depot may require an overhead heater that might be up to $1,000. I know this all sounds small, but it all adds up, and we're just very closely watching our tight budgets. So.
Yeah, the arrangement with the bus garage is that it's ours. Minor maintenance stuff is theirs, and we replaced the heater actually last year, year before. They have 2 air heaters with stimulus money, if you remember. But we did not get this one. I guess they didn't think it was a problem, but the motor burnt out, and they said it's about $300 to do the motor, or $300 to $400, which is about half the price we're talking about. The estimate we were talking about with George was between $850 to $1,000 for a new space heater of that nature. And that's a big ticket item which we, as the owners of the building, have to deal with.
And that would be right out here, right?
No,
Or
this
the
is
West
West
State.
State Street where we have the
Okay,
buses.
okay.
We also, I asked Charlene whether we got rid of those Gilligs. We did. I think we collected about $5,000 on it, I'm told. So we got those junk buses out for scrap. The big ones
One
from...
person's junk, another person's
Yeah, treasure.
treasure.
Okay. And we were talking about copiers at one time, but we're still looking into that?
Yes.
Okay.
Ray called someone, and so we're going to look into that before we ask for money.
If the use of a color cartridge adds considerable cost to it, we were talking about centralizing. At least, since people share paper, they go down to the mayor's office and steal it from his area. We could probably also share the color.
I was thinking we were going to use crayons, weren't we?
Yeah, we could do that too. There we go. That will really be a cost-saving effort.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you each a box of crayons. We'll just test the stuff out and color it in.
Only one box of crayons.
And one crayon at a time. All right. The other, do you have anything else under miscellaneous?
I do.
Okay.
Just that I handed out the unclaimed monies ordinance. I'd like to have amended.
Oh, yes, okay.
08506, we passed that in '06. And I rewrote on the very bottom, I copied it all onto one sheet, so you wouldn't have 2 sheets. I rewrote the funding we'd like to have in there. What happens is there's another step in there that's not in here. And so if you don't want to amend this, then I have to ask for an appropriation every year. But what I'd like to do is just have it written in there so that we can appropriate that money to refund or transfer without having to come to council for $2,000. So, which is about what we need right now. And so if you look on the bottom, most of it is still in place. And we replace reimbursements for checks. What happens is we write checks, they become stale dated. The end of the year, like now, we're getting ready to send out letters and try to locate people who didn't cash their checks. And some people will come forward, most of them probably not. But what happens, and this is by law, we then transfer that money. We keep it for a holding period and then transfer it into the general fund. So right now, we have about $2,000 worth of unclaimed checks from last year. And so the ordinance gives us the authority to move that money into the unclaimed monies fund, 903, and then after the holding period to transfer to the general fund. What I'd like is the bolded wording in there that the transferred funds will then be appropriated into 903 TC 600.
And that'll smooth out the process, so
It will.
it's
And,
something you could forget
right.
and have to do at the last minute. Anybody
Right.
have a problem with that? Rationalizing that? Okay. Over.
Councilmember Bain, I did forget one item.
Well, that's good. I've got another one after this. So
Okay.
proceed.
Last year, I believe it went through council, but what happened was that Division EPW purchased a generator for the water treatment plant. As Andy says, it was a great deal, great deal. Well, it turns out it's enough to run it, but not enough to start him up, believe it or not. So he's going to be seeking an additional $25,000, return that machine, get a machine that will operate all the remote pumps sites, and that would come out of the water treatment funding. This is the first time Kathy's heard this, so she'll need to look at the fund and see if we can
We almost
accommodate
didn't
that.
have funds to cover that much. Anybody have an objection to that? You would take it around when there's a power outage to run the plants, should we go over 24 or 48 hours? Okay. Obviously, something we need in our changing world. Okay, the last thing under finance and personnel, only because I picked it up, is Heritage Ohio is working to renew Ohio's 25% historic tax credit. In the past, we weren't necessarily participating in this because we had our own program, but that program is now done. We had our full-time and the Uptown certainly shows what has happened with the investment, both of that and with money from our funds for street improvements and other things like that. But this is one that's a more general thing that could use, and they would like, this would be Ohio Historic Preservation, Heritage Ohio. I was using their website a lot this weekend. It's no cost to us, I suppose, except in a minute sense. We might have to pay more money in another area. But this tax credit renewal, if 4 of you will go along with it, could we send a resolution forward asking us to present it to the Ohio General Assembly? My sense is it's not going to matter much, but we should at least try, in my opinion. Anybody against it? You guys are a pushover. How about you? All right, Alana, what do you think? Okay. Chris?
No, I think it's worthwhile. We saw one of the examples of the funding
yes.
that had been allowed was, or not allowed, but awarded, was the Armory over in Marietta, which is a good example of the use of that money.
Yeah, and I think, that, Mayor, you've talked about that, haven't you? The Armory in Marietta. Didn't you mention that?
Yes, they
And
use
so
it for
that's-
tax credit purposes
yeah.
to augment their construction. They haven't done it yet, but they're putting it all together.
Well, once they've done it and it works, then we can try it here. And so,
Maybe.
and some in Toledo, the Brennan Building, the Federal Building in Mahoning County, Youngstown, Federal Reserve Building, Cincinnati, Hamilton County. All of them are substantial. That one's $20 million. And then the Fike Building in Sandusky, First Congregation Church in Cuyahoga. All of these are something that Debbie just got off the web for us, right? So look up Ohio Historic Tax Credit Program, and if you want input on that, otherwise we'll have a resolution doing that going forward. More money.
The biggest difference between that and the Marietta Armory and ours is that theirs is still on the tax rolls. Ours were taken off the tax rolls a while back, but if we were ever to lease it out, whether to some organization or something like that, or put it back on the tax rolls for various reasons, what they do is they give tax credits for the renovation and historic preservation. And I think it's a major portion for the Marietta Armory at this point. They've got a little bit of multimodal stuff. They got some generous donations.
It seems that if you're creative and use combinations, you're going to be better off in the upcoming changes. Yeah, a little juggling. That sounds good. All right. Well, that will adjourn the meeting of the Finance and Personnel Committee. You notice we're not spending so much money anymore. waiting for next month. Now I'd like to call to order the City Services Committee meeting with one item that I'm going to talk about, garbage contract proposal. You have it with you? Oh, you're much better than I. I always would have it on my computer and forget to bring. Anybody else need this? You need it? Okay. Chris, you have this?
I've got mine.
Okay. This is sort of a stream of consciousness thing. If at the end of the hour you want to have a coffee, or maybe I'll just sit down and do it right now. And then if you need one, you can pass them out. As I say, it's stream of consciousness. And the mayor and I have both been on the Athens Hocking Solid Waste District Committee. And actually, I'm the rep for the county as a citizen, because I do have that other title, citizen. And we've been going through a process of planning for quite a while. And I think it would be fair to say, and I'm going to stick really close to my script, but it would be fair to say that things are changing fairly quickly in our region, and especially in the solid waste business. And so, to that end, we have talked, I think, actually I was pretty frightened by some things that happened last year at the time. There was a strong allegation that recycling was subsidizing our garbage pickup, which, all of a sudden everybody did finally learn that that was not the case. But it took a year, and it's very complex. And so we last year passed a resolution to enter into contracts as opposed to running licenses. And it wasn't only based upon the experience at the Solid Waste District Planning meeting, but instead, it's more of a reflection of the historical reality, and it will also, the argument would be, actually the argument's at the bottom. EPA requires, and our plan will specifically require that we have commercial recycling going on in our plan. Right now, we collect fees for commercial recycling. The rest is a little sketchy because there's no way that the fees that are collected would fund the operations. And so one of the things that I would like to propose, and I've passed this by the mayor, is that the contract in the future would require that recycling materials be collected and transported to our recycling center. And we are required to do recycling on the commercial side. And there's really no way with our existing system that we can go forward with that. I think you will see changes in Athens Hocking recycling. One of our tragedies, and I will say it with unabashed concern, that when Logan voted down the generation fee, we have practically starvation level funding at the Athens Hocking Recycling Center. We have the lowest support of any solid waste district. And so it's really quite a problem for the counties and for us. And all of the people, we started out in our meetings, and maybe the mayor could jump in anytime he wants. They were pretty much, we had some divisions. By the time we got to the end, we were united, right? We want the generation fee. We want the funding for our work. Anyway.
Part of the thing, may I jump in?
Absolutely.
Okay. Again, we're actually on the policy board. It's a 5-year update of the plan. We submitted the plan in December, mid-December. One of the things, of course, the EPA is looking at it. I think they have almost a full year to look at it and come back with recommendations. The early feedback I'm getting is they still are concerned of how we're going to fund our recycling process. The yardstick they use right now is the accessibility of recycling transfer stations, where you pick up the stuff, and then how much we collect. The next 5 years will require a percentage of what we collect as a number, an actual percentage of garbage-generated recycling and a percentage. So we're have it pretty easy for the next 5 years, because all we have to do is put these little roll-offs out there, alley cats as you call them, which are sorted bins in various places all over the county and in the city. One of the weak points, of course, in the discussion was the fact that we're not getting good numbers from the commercial side. The other section, of course, is outside the city. We have a good collection inside the city, as you know. We have what they call non-subscription curbside recycling. Everybody pays into it, whether you do it or not. Eventually, we'll have to probably change what we do in terms of sorting, although I personally am not into that. I recognize the fact that our technology is circa 1980. Of course, it comes down to what we want to the thrust of the R710 was to change the mix of what the commercial carriers are doing. Mostly because we want to get better numbers. We want a slow ramp up of recycling from all the commercial haulers, and we want to require that. So we need to have a better tracking system. As it stands now, we get a list of their clients. We do not know their routes. There's a certain amount of redundancy, and I know that there's various arguments, tearing up the streets, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea is that the landscape's going to change, and we need to change some of the conditions we have of what we've been offering as a franchise, just a permission to just drive around the town and collect what you will.
And charge what you will.
And charge what you will. Well, again, I don't know how much we can actually legislate what the charging is, but we can actually pick up a little bit more cost share from our side to augment the chew-up of the roads. We can probably get a better count on how much recycling is going on. In other words, require those numbers and say how much trash are you picking up and how much recycling is going on. The thrust of having it come through our system up in Chansey there, Route 13, would be a better accounting system. These are all the factors. We're still kicking around this contract and what it's going to look like. I've asked some of the commercial haulers to actually give me a copy of what they have for other cities. I've asked Roger Bale of Athens Hocking Recycling Inc. to give me copies of what they see out there in the other waste districts. But the clock is ticking. We want to get this done by July, I believe. So this is actually the first talking we're going to have of this stuff. Some of the requirements I think we're conversed about was, do we want to just, how to make a fair fee schedule in terms of, whether it's the number of trucks, whether it's the number of clients. Do we limit the routes? Do we limit the service areas? Do we put it all out to bid, saying, let's cut the city into quadrants and put out 4 bids, because we have 4 franchises, and whoever comes closest to the mark gets 1, 2, 3, or 4.
And somebody could do all of them, right?
Yes.
One
Well, it's not that different than when they put out the bids for the GO bus. Essentially, there are 4 routes. It didn't make sense for us to go chase down the ones coming out of Columbus to Mount Vernon or Coshocton, but it did make sense for us to go 2 of the 4. So I look at it, and that's the model in my mind right now. But again, I still don't have a clear picture of what we want. But I know what we have to change, what's going to happen here.
So, just continuing on, one thing that Andy mentioned, and I think is an important one, every time a garbage truck drives over the road, it does equivalent to damage to 30,000 cars over a course of a year. In other words, having those ride on some of our roads has been a damaging situation. And I think also that there's enough uncertainty out there. A contract would give us a different framework than the licenses. And since I'm the only one old enough to remember why there are licenses, I'd like to review that momentarily, not too long. But we have licenses, which means you pay $2,000 or $3,000, and you can compete for however many on the marketplace or whatever, by word of mouth, for whatever you want to pick up. I have questions in my own mind, and I think Paul does too. I think we once tried to figure out if everybody who was commercial was actually having their garbage picked up, and we were never able to ascertain that because it was the bookkeeping was so limited. Not everybody's bookkeeping, but many of them. And we don't know if there were charges that were equal or not. I know we tried initially in our early effort at licensure. We tried to do it, but we couldn't accomplish it. We could not say. And I think there are quite a few differences in charges from one place to another, from one company to another, from one individual to another. And it's quite inequitable. I mean, if you have an apartment with 16 units, you know what your garbage charge is. Well, that's not a good example because they would be commercial. But with 5, 7 units, you would know in advance what your garbage charges will be. And they are very variable because we don't have any supervision or control over them. Now, you might say that's probably a good idea. But Some of you might, but I won't. When we had this in the late 80s, we went out of the commercial business, and we took over all the residential business in the city. And at that point, we created these licenses for 5 holders that were local people that drove garbage trucks, had a very small operation. And quite honestly, those were gobbled up by the large corporations a couple times, so those small guys have long since gone, the Rices and the Troy Hyatts and the rest. And so the initial incentive, which was to keep those jobs local, is gone. Our current commercial garbage holders, you have 4 licenses. We tried to move it down to 3 or 4 or 2 or 1, but just to cut down the challenges there. We have farmers from Logan paying $2,000 for the farmers, license. And these charges are based upon the ordinance at the time. We have Rumpke out of Wellston with $3,400. We have Tree/Farmers 2 out of Logan, $850. And then we have Waste Management we currently have. Okay, so kicking it around, these are some ideas we had, and as the mayor says, the clock is ticking. Clicking and ticking, maybe both. But we're thinking about 3 or 4 contracts, not necessarily guaranteeing that anybody who's currently hauling would get they'd have to bid. I guess that's as simple as it is. My preference would be to arrange it geographically, or else we'll have the same problem with trucks crossing back over. The contract will be to haul garbage and collect recycling materials for a 2-year term. And this is very important. I'm hoping that this will result in a pay-as-you-throw system. We cannot pick up some of the commercial recycling materials for the fee that we're charging now. It just is not feasible in the large businesses. And I think people have an expectation that, recycling is cheap, and it's not. It can work if you have high-quality materials that you can sell, as long as the market isn't totally tanked, and as long as you keep on it and actually have a system that works reasonably well. There are different varieties of this. I think Farmers does some pickup, and I think Rumpke does as well. But I think what would be good over the long haul would be to give the same opportunity to the commercial holders as would be available to the residential, which is you can reduce your garbage fees by recycling more. But you might pay a little more for recycling, but overall, on balance, you could actually end up with a lower bill, potentially, because there'll be fewer landfill fees here. And one of the things that, I wrote down some more things asking for reported information. This may be overkill, but it has to do with my experience in trying to figure out exactly what's going on, and it's really quite almost impossible. So I was thinking that you would want to know the route name, the routes, and a list of the name, addresses, monthly garbage fees, monthly recycling fees. I would assume that the people who are picking up large amounts of cardboard might charge more than $250. The current paid recycling fee would go to prepare at the recycling center for processing, because we can't put any more pressure on them as it is. Full recycling should be implemented within a year, but the service safety director or the designee could offer a 6-month extension. Additional requirements in an apartment may include the purchase of an alley pad or its equivalent. And I've thought about it quite a bit, and we do have very unique, very unique garbage pickup situations. And one of the things that I've always hated in my experience as an OU instructor, students will get all fired up about recycling, and then we'll find out that they don't do it up at University Courtyard, or they don't do it, or if they do it, it's just not very effective. And they get so bummed out because they're all fired up and nothing happens. So I suggest that, maybe the ways we've done it before weren't conducive to getting the fired up people participating, and maybe if we put them all in one unit, sort of came up so that there would be almost a standardized approach. That's just one thing I was thinking about this weekend, too much discretionary time. One of the other things I think we need is the service director needs to have the ability, given past experience, not recently, to assign collections in times of emergency. So if somebody's by the wayside, that has to happen. I also think that there's a lot of hauling. There's a lot of things that are delegated by virtue of our relationship with Athens Hocking, which may or may not be here in the future, but I think it's here for a while anyway. So there's a big celebration of town, and the residents of the city of Athens are mainly paying for this. Just like when we have spring cleanup, a lot of the places that are putting garbage out and stuff are commercial entities, and yet we're picking it up. Because it's that time of hell when everything at the curb gets picked up. I've seen it myself on Mill Street. Units that I know are commercial contracts are just picked up. Oh, old sofa, throw it in. And I also suggest that this is not, we've been going way too low on this up till now. And my idea would be to start at $5,000 as a minimum to offset the cost of administration, which, let's be honest, the residential users have been paying for way too long. So basically, we have to talk about this another time, but it's out in public now. And fundamentally, what we're talking about is a move to pay-as-you-throw commercial. And, come on, you guys. We did pay-as-you-throw in Athens City when nobody thought it could be done, so I think we can do it here. It'll be a different approach. The collection and the residential part maybe have to be fine-tuned. I mean, not collection, but there's some other work that has to be done, but this is a focus for the 1st of July. As you see, the mayor's talking about it, but we would have to advertise, authorize the service director or the administration to enter into a contract, and we would have the parameters there for this service only. We're not talking about any other part of our system. So the poor service director.
Well, I mean, I've stated how I feel in terms of easing into this would be absolutely. I think that the providers in the city who are collecting commercial need to provide for recycling and take it to our recycling center so that we can capture that. That's the problem, as you've indicated, is that we need to get those numbers up in order to show that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing on that. So I wanted to also clarify, in spring cleanup you can put trash bags out, but there are additional fees for sofas, couches, larger items, and they're supposed to...
I don't know who got charged. At that point it was like Sunday morning and it was crazy. So, I don't really know. It just seemed like it wasn't fair and equitable. And I also think that we have this just as our residential units pose very different challenges. Probably anybody driving into town thinking about it wouldn't even imagine what spring cleanup is and what Halloween is or the fests. Maybe semesters will solve that, who knows. But I think likewise the large commercial establishments, River Place and University Courtyards, all would need to be incorporated in a way that will be different from everyone else. And so a cardboard dumpster at the mall isn't going to cut it out there in those entities. And maybe something like the Alley Cat, which I've shown pictures of. It's not, the panacea, but it's certainly a way around it. And there would be some capital outlay associated with that, and that's one of the parts that's hard to work on right there. Or we could get, a bunch of boxes together. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm just winging it. Okay, so this is kind of the current thought process. If you have immediate thoughts, you can have at it right now. If you have things you want to consider, go ahead. We'll talk another time, and then we'll have an ordinance, okay?
Again, part of the thing is that, to talk about landscape changing, we could have gone with in terms of the policy, we could have said we're going to use a new yardstick, because the yardstick actually is of percentage waste is actually coming into play now, but we started our application before that. But if we had good numbers, we could actually, wave a flag and say we're doing good numbers. On the commercial side, I know, glass, for instance, is not something that gets picked up easily by the commercial side. It is actually by weight. It's one of the easy ones to get a good number from. Cardboard is
Profitable.
It is profitable. The only thing more so, I guess, would be aluminum or metal.
Or clean white office paper, which we have.
Yes. Okay. So, but the idea is we need to track those better. We need a consistency of it. We also need to have all the commercial haulers doing that, so we can get those numbers in the next 5 years, so we can actually, put ourselves with a gold star and get it rolling. And again, it's still, to my mind, it's not clear what we're going to end up with, but we got to get rolling on it. Period.
Well, we are where we are in residential pickup and recycling, only by working it through and fine-tuning it and going back again and again.
And that still needs improvement too.
Always, everything human needs improvement.
I do want to state that what I've received at my office is basically people very upset about the proposal that they cannot choose their provider. And the way that this proposal is, it would still result in them not having that ability to choose, as opposed to changing it where in order to obtain a franchise license, you indeed have to comply with the recycling and having those measures in place. I've said.
And I guess it wouldn't surprise you to know, since I've told you before, we had the very same issues come forward, and I had somebody yell at me for a half an hour right over there because of the South Side takeover. And, nobody complains. I mean, they complain about some things, but it's not an issue anymore. Choose your own garbage can. Yeah, go
As a
ahead.
resident of the South Side, I appreciate the city taking over garbage collection.
Well, the problem is that some people won't have collection if you don't have it centralized and monitored. I mean, that's the bottom line. Some people say, it's garbage, I don't have to pay for it, I can take it to work and dump it in the dumpster at OU or wherever, or in front of whatever business downtown. Let somebody else pay the cost. It's not fair. It's just an effort to meet those. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and realize there is a push out there to the concept of zero waste. I don't know what that looks like, but at the same time, there's a group out there within the city who's thinking in those terms. So we want to keep track of what their concepts are and where they want to aim on that. I don't know what that looks like, but I find
Well, that's another innovation. I don't think anybody knows what it looks like right now, or do they?
No,
So, and you're probably going to be part of it.
we hope.
I mean, the city will probably be some part of it, and it'll take a while. But you don't change in 2 years, you probably change more like 20.
So if you have any feedback, shoot it to me or Nancy or anybody else on the City Services Committee.
Yeah, we start it, and we start an ordinance, and then it goes from there. So we did in the downtown franchise.
Okay.
So anybody in the audience wish to speak? Yeah. Would you come up here and give your name and address? And
I am one of the representatives from one of your haulers.
Okay.
I'm with Rumpke Waste. My name is Tom Wallace. The only thing that I would suggest and you said it, Councilman Bain, the capital outlay, a 2-year contract is probably going to be more expensive than, because of the capital outlay, than if it were a 5-year contract. I've seen a lot of 5-year contracts where you could depreciate your equipment out a little further. That would be my only suggestion. I see where you want to go, and I totally understand and totally agree with it. But I think your contract length, you really need to think about that to get your price. The longer the contract, the lower the price.
yeah,
Well,
and so
what I'm
one of the
trying to say.
conversations we had at the Finance Committee last Thursday was, we want a certain benchmark in terms of performance, so that's why we
Sure.
said 2 years. Conversation about 2 years with a 3-year rollover.
May I make a suggestion that you ask for references? As we will present to you, and I think Nick Rupert had talked to you, Mayor, and we will get you some copies of contracts, from the areas that we've done. We do Columbus, Cincinnati. We've got the whole contract, exclusive contract for the city of Marietta. You mentioned Marietta. We do curbside recycling, residential curbside recycling. We take it to the recycling center that is represented in the county there on Route 7 going into Marietta. It used to be Rebay, and I'm not sure they've changed names, I'm not sure, but that's where we take it to, because I don't deal that particular side of the recycling with what they do with it. But you will have a track on it that way. Right now, we're getting a lot of the recycling from farmers that are picking up here in town. Supposedly, it's coming to our recycling center in Circleville. That's, as far as I know, the cardboard is for sure. We do get a lot from farmers on cardboard. But I think once you see these contracts that we will be getting to you here in the next few days, is I think the length of the contract, to me, is something that stands out right now. You can ask for references, and if you reference, you can get on there just like you would a credit reference and check wherever. If the reference isn't that good, then you can start eliminating that way also.
And so,
But I think the length of your contract will give you a lot cheaper price, a 5-year, or, you know.
for the users, and as you see it right now, they will be paying, I mean, you will bill them and you will collect from the customers, right? That's the way it will go, and so,
Sure.
yeah. And I think we had 5 years in mind, it's just we were hoping to.
Right,
Have
right. And
performance that-
Marietta's is coming up this year. We had a 5-year with them, and it's got a 5-year renewal on it.
Maybe
And-
that's a good one.
Again, part of the thing there is that if we're not performing in 5 years where the policy comes up again, the policy board has to meet again and say, okay, now we have a new set of benchmarks, we have a new strategy that has to be put in place. Right now, if you talk to the EPA at the last policy meetings, they keep saying, you're not meeting the present one, and we are concerned. Now, Athenians here, having paid the $1 EPA litigation fee that's on our utility bill right now, when the EPA says we're concerned, we listen. I don't know about the rest of the county, but at the same time, so to put a 5-year contract in, and, you know, again, this is all up for negotiations in that sense, or concepts, at least among us. If we're not getting performance in another 5 years, we're going to be even further behind.
Well, and keep in mind in your contract, you know, as they're written, and I'm sure your city law director would advise you on this, that you have an out clause in that first 5 years.
Yeah.
But if it's not- if for non-performance, there's, you know, several avenues that you can look at.
Oh, yes, yes.
Not to really, you put it out at a 5-year, you know, if that's feasible, and then have that clause to get out of the contract if they don't perform up to standards. But I just think your 5-year contract's going to give you a better pricing structure.
Probably. What do you think about, this is just a question I wondered about, what do you think about, what would happen if Rumpke would be acquired by, let's say, a larger entity, Fox News or something, I don't know. Fox News. I'm trying to think of something that was, I didn't want to say Waste Management Inc., but what would happen then to your contract? Would it go with the sale?
You can do it both ways.
Okay, that's what I was,
I just received, I left it in my truck, I should have, I wish I had it with me. I just got a bid from the city of Huntington, and they still do their own trash pickup in West Virginia, they're in city, and they're hunting for a disposal site. And they have in there's a paragraph in their contract, that if wherever they're hauling it to, the landfill or transfer station that they're hauling it to, if it is sold, it can be assigned to the next owner, or they can cancel the contract. It's phrased in there where they can either continue the contract, assign it to the new owner, or cancel the contract and put it back out for bid. So there's a lot of language in these contracts that I think you'll be surprised to see once you actually see them and read them. And like I said, you know, we're going to get some over to the mayor where you'll have them.
that one especially, because I'd like to make sure that's in there. Since we've got a, revolving door almost, since
Sure.
it's gotten to be stable in the recent times.
Yeah.
Because there's some money in it.
And you know.
Isn't there? I mean, there's money in this business.
Yes.
I mean, why would you be in it otherwise?
I've been in it almost 18 years.
Yeah. I mean, so.
And believe it or not, I got out of the John Deere industrial equipment business to get in the garbage business. So.
Garbage is always here, I don't know about the John Deere part.
But yeah, it's something that's always going to be there, and, you know, if it's done right, yes, there's money to be made.
That's what we're striving for, don't we?
Yeah, and if it's done right, and like I said, it's, and we, you know, from having, we do a recycling project at the landfill that I work out of. You know, I work in 2 different offices, and at the landfill, they're on 32.
Sandhill.
Yeah, the old Sands Hill, yeah, originally Sands Hill landfill. We've got a recycling pad there, and we do commingled recycling and cardboard recycling. Put it on the pad, dump it into the transfer trailers, and they take it to Columbus. So, you know, it's,
I know it's a complex business.
yeah.
Anybody have a question they'd like to ask them?
Sure. Currently, could you tell us anything about the business you do in Athens right now?
I'm sorry?
Do you currently do commercial businesses in
Yes,
Athens?
we
I think
do.
you're one of the holders here.
Yes.
And can you just tell me a little bit about how it's gone, how many years you've been in that business in Athens?
How long we've been in the business in Athens, I really can't tell you that. I know we've been in it 8 years. That's how long I've been with Rumpke Waste. So we've been in it at least that long and longer. Percentage of what business we have, commercial business here in town, I'm going to say we're probably right at 40 to 50%. Probably more on the 40 side because then you've got waste management in here, and then you've got farmers and trays. So we're probably right at the 40% level on it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Ms. Julian
Anybody else?
stayed.
Thank you. We sometimes talk with Nick Rupert, who's the recycling.
Yeah, Nick does.
Nick was here earlier today,
Yeah.
and I asked him for contracts, examples of contracts.
He's really up on, not that, I mean, he's just talked to us, it's all the.
Sure, and I'm going to lay some of my business cards over here. I do all the municipal bids and third-party sales for Rumpke, and I'll lay some of my cards over there, and you can pick them up as you leave.
Thank you.
And if we can be any help to you, we'll get, like I said, we'll get the contracts to you. If we can be any help or try to advise you in any direction, not necessarily that's going to be biased toward us, but something that, if you got questions, we've got people that can answer most any of them.
And I think the contracts alone will be a great help.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure, they will. All right, thank you very much.
Anybody else wishing to speak on this? All right. Well,
Nancy, I do have 2 additional items for the
Right, I was just
Think
gonna
City
say-
Services or Community
Thank you for coming.
Services.
Go ahead. So what do you have?
Okay. The first one is, we're coming up to apply for our 2-year Comprehensive Housing Improvement Program. That's our CHIP that we do with Hocking Athens Prairie Community Action Agency. For years, we've been discussing, boy, wouldn't it be great to get a Habitat house in the city of Athens, which we haven't been able to do. So we had met with Greg Andrews, and we were looking at vacant lots in the city. We have some on Alexander Street. This is the one up by the Village Bakery. Greg has gone and looked at it with Ken Ohlers, the new director of the Habitat for Humanity, and find it suitable. Right now, according to the county auditor's website, the 4 Alexander Street lots are valued at $26,420. It's going to get a little complicated here, but what happens is if council would consider donating a property to have a Habitat build there, we can then maximize and apply for the full $500,000 in comprehensive housing improvement. In addition, Habitat gets $20,000 to go towards their construction and what they would have. Some of the other proposed activities are private owner rehab, about $35,000 per unit, and homeowner repair. A rental rehabilitation, that one always gets difficult in the city of Athens because of the extremely high rents that have been charged, but Greg is working with Keith Andrews and Metropolitan Housing Authority where they own property and are, of course, would be renting it out at the fair market value according to HUD. That's not anywhere near our fair market value that we have here. So this is coming up rapidly. It's an April 1st deadline. I have had the planner research the deed of the properties. There are no deed restrictions. I'm sure somebody will come out and say this is what the thought was at the time of the donated land. But then Greg Andrews would also like to hold the first public hearing for these activities 2 weeks from now at the beginning of the council committee. Because
Do we have to
do-
advertise or?
He's ready to go, but I said, let me talk with council to see whether there is a will out there to consider the donation of this to actually get a Habitat home. It's
One or
on a
three?
bus line. I think we're only looking at one. One's a start.
But there'll be 2 other lots. It's going to be built on a single lot, is that right?
That will have to be determined based on getting, the experts out there to survey it and see. Now, there is some, there's slope there, so there's going to be some limitations on where they can place it.
They could
I've
design.
also been reminded that new trees were planted there. We would get those relocated, so.
We put some fruit trees there last year.
Yeah,
Actually, we
it's
did.
Lori's project.
Yeah, so, but 1 year in, we can
Still moving.
transplant them.
Is there anyone who has a question about this, or should we proceed to have the hearing?
Proceed.
Yeah. And it would be in a neighborhood where it's not on a busy street?
Bus line,
Bus
as you
line.
well within the city area. Again, this comes down to Paul's expertise in housing,
Mm-hmm.
and that we were very much aware of the need of this. And the CHIP, we didn't go for the CHIP grant last round because literally there's only so many activities that we can do, and we're trying to open up that field a little bit better now.
Yeah. So, and the monies are still there?
Right now. Yes, we could go through all this and apply and be awarded, and then, the state pulls it out from underneath the rug.
Yeah, and for those people out there that have a sort of a knowledge of Habitat, one thing you have to understand is the people who get the house, buy it from Habitat. So it's not like given to somebody. They work on the house and they pay it for it back to Habitat, and then they build the next house with that money, and so on and so
And they
forth.
take lessons in budgeting, they take lessons in finance, they get an education on home ownership.
And there's a very active OU chapter. I hope they get a chance to. They have enough money to build a house right now, so that's been a big change. Do you have another, anybody else? Oh,
Yeah, this would be the property right behind Delazona, basically.
Yes, the hillside there.
Yeah.
But on the downside, right?
I'm sure it'll all come out to slopes and engineering, and they
Yeah,
can
well,
really, you can almost build anything anywhere, believe it or not.
Well, I think that they were doing houses in Jacksonville on a slope like this, and not very good land.
Very sloped, you're right.
And they just ended up doing French drains around the footers, and it looks like they're still there. It's only been a year, though. Who knows? No, actually, they won't let them build it unless it's work. Nelsonville, did you ever see the houses there? I mean, they're up on the slopes, way up on the top of the hill. It's amazing. I don't know how they get up them in the wintertime. Yeah. Chris, you okay with this?
Yes.
Chris? I have, yeah. Meets the comprehensive plan goal of getting some low and moderate income housing in the city. And you too? Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to, exactly, I was just going to reiterate that as well in some of the discussions that we've heard at some of the town hall meetings is needs in the community that we have for homeless people as well as low-income housing. So I'm excited about potentially moving forward with this.
Good. So tell us what we need to do.
We'll have our first public hearing then on February 28th with the committee.
All right. Anything?
Secondly, Mayor Bain, you and Councilmember Sands asked me at the Finance and Personnel about the Soil and Water Conservation District monies. At that time, I indicated that I believed in the mayor had budgeted the full $12,000 that we've been giving. You have requested to me to contact them and see about what they could take in terms of a cut. And I've spoken with Kathy Bobo, and essentially, if they took a $6,000, meaning a 50% cut, that would be devastating to the organization. She stated that they've gone from, their county funding has gone from $97,000 to $92,000 last year to $62,000 this year. What happens with the municipal and the county funding is that there is a match from the state. So when we reduce ours, that then ultimately reduces the match. So basically, she is stating that these net result now could result in a projected 42% decrease in revenues for the district in 2011. I did tell her that it seemed to me, based on what I heard from council, that they do have to look at taking less in terms of a cut. How far deep will that go? So, how deep will it go?
And the money's not appropriated already?
Money is
Money is
appropriated. Money is in
appropriated.
fund line 101, 120, 535, 900.
She stated 6,000 would be devastating, 8,000 would be harsh also, 10,000 would be livable. So, but I understand. I also explained to her that we're also looking at cuts in terms of other fundings, like, for example, CFI has been mentioned, what we're doing. And yes, it's tough times.
And maybe in 2 years, they'll be back. I mean, we would go back on it. I mean, they do a lot of outreach, and we're happy to see it, but the question is, anybody else want to weigh in on this? I'm naturally.
No, just a question. This is out of the general fund? Or-
Yes, it's 101, general fund.
Yes.
They're
Which
in
we know
line.
is tight. She did mention today, and I told her that I would advise you that they may have to discuss on a board level if they take these cuts, instituting a fee. Now, they've never done that before. They do not do it in the county because the county, when they do home inspections, they get a certain portion of that reimbursed. So they do not within the city. But that may be the ultimate place they land on.
And when I was occasionally supervising, chaperoning the Envirothon, I know that we were one of the few cities in Ohio that actually contributed. Generally, the contribution is a county function. So,
Makes us unique.
what? Yeah, certainly makes us, in a lot of ways, unique. Anybody have an opinion on this?
I guess I would offer, the work that I've seen of the soil and water conservation is admirable. I think they do a service to a lot of citizens in the city. I would hate to see their funds so that the agency is devastated, but maybe the answer lies somewhere in a compromise. It's difficult to make cuts, but I think we're going to need to continue to make cuts in a variety of areas throughout the city budget this year. And so if we take small portions, then
Well, you
we
could,
can reach
you know,
our goal
that's-
maybe.
That's a good idea, because the county commissioners have cut the funding by 1/3. And of course, it is done in the county. I mean, the county government, I mean, it's not odd for a county to fund soil conservation, soil and water, natural resources conservation service. I mean, I really like Kathy Bobe. I hate to be in the position of even talking about this, but on the other hand, who knows what we're up against? Do you want to wait a month? Until we know what
We
the budget
usually
looks like?
start this through ordinance, which is what you reminded me of, and then it's usually
Yes, not
done
only
by
that.
April 1st. So
Yeah.
we're kind of up against it in terms of timing.
Yeah, well, we could read it fast if we know, yeah, sure.
Well, if 10,000 is livable for them, couldn't we at least?
How about 8? I mean, it's 1/3, 1/3, 9?
Yeah.
I actually probably would say we'll be back, but right now, I mean, maybe there's no environmental.
That is one thing she asked, is this, the possibility to revisit later if numbers change.
Yeah, when
I hate to hold out hope, and I'm a pessimist often by nature anyway, but when we're sitting on a freeze on a police or a firefighter, I wholeheartedly understand the need to kind of rein in some of the other contributions.
What do you
we're
think,
making.
Mayor?
You said a third, 8,000?
Yeah, that math isn't very good, is it? Is it third? Or, yeah, that would be
It
it,
is a
wouldn't it?
third, yeah.
Yeah. Surprise myself sometimes.
It was accurate.
Yeah, I thought, oh, that can't be right.
I
Anybody?
wasn't even impressed. I expected you to do it right off the top.
Well, we'll learn.
I know it is, originally we were talking about 6,000, so this is a little bit further up. But again, I did put it in the budget for this year, because I wasn't sure. I know we discussed it in November, but then we only brought it up once at that time. I know we were talking about reducing CFI.
Anybody have strong opposition to taking a third off, as commissioners did, or going to 8?
I think 8's reasonable.
What did you say? I just saw that head. I heard your brains rattle a lot. Come on.
I think it's sad, some of the things that we have to cut, but that's the only way that we can do it, is across the board, finding ways to decrease our cost.
We're all worried, aren't we? What do you think?
Well, I think that it's,
It's very desirable.
yeah, I mean, I think that what we're looking at is, state cuts coming down and really impacting the local services. And people have to realize that if there's going to be, tax cuts at the state level, it's going to trickle on down to impacted services and possibly increases in fees at the local level. So it's really not a tax cut, it's just a rollover and a trickling on down of the fees and taxes to the local level. And I don't think we can get anywhere around that.
You already spoke a lot, or I mean,
I welcome a little more time to consider, but I'm okay with the
Okay.
third as well. I
we'll
mean,
start with, we'll probably start it on Thursday. Give you a little more chance to think and.
Because I haven't researched it terribly well, and would need to familiarize myself a little bit more with the numbers.
The beginning of many difficult things, I think.
And that's all I have.
So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Community issues, Chris?
I only have one brief item, and that's to make an announcement about a town hall meeting that will be taking place on Tuesday, April 19th, 6:30 to 9:30. And it's following up on a comment made by Brian Bridges at our last town hall meeting about the comments on diversity. So this town hall meeting coming up in April will be focused in on that civility and diversity issue. And I believe we have people from the city that are already assisting with the planning on that. We also have a community relations committee with John Schmeeding taking part. Becky Watts from the university is working with community and OU neighborhood associations, and then Brian Bridges from the university as well. So we're looking forward to that. There was a good turnout at the town hall meeting I think just a few weeks ago, and I think close to 75 people, so we're hopeful that we'll get the same kind of turnout, if not even better, for this coming one in April.
And I believe the town hall meeting should be on the website by now.
Yes, Councilmember Fall.
I also like to announce a meeting. Several people on the Far East side, over on the other side of Route 33, have asked me to get together an organizing meeting for a possible new neighborhood association for the Far East side, which I had put together for Wednesday, March 2nd, 7 o'clock at the conference center in the conference room in the community center. So people can email me if they know people who are interested. Please get the word out.
Great. That's the only items we have for community issues then, or Mayor Weil.
Well, since we're talking about possible meetings, I was approached by some of the local food entities about trying to put a symposium together, or like a conference, so to speak, of local food producers. I don't know, they're kind of vague of what times and when, but I just want to bring that up sometime in the spring, maybe.
Couldn't they pony on top of what Tom Casteras is doing?
The healthy Appalachian? Yeah.
Oh,
We'll
that's
find
a
out. I
May.
think they're looking more at food production in terms of,
So they're going to show like the different products they produce, right?
I don't know. I don't know what they approached me and said they were interested in doing something they want to
They'll
go.
get more bang if they're in a,
What?
there'll be much more activity with the larger.
Yeah, the health venue is, May 19th through 21st, and they're expecting several hundred people for that.
And kind of the locavore component of it, or sort of,
That might be a possible.
isn't that what you call it? Locavore?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll shoot some of that information to Leslie Schaller, who I think was the contact on that.
Okay.
So now we saved the best for last, the Environment Committee.
Thank you, Member Bain. All I have is miscellaneous. There were two items I wanted to bring up tonight that we'll be discussing in the near future, just to bring them to the public eye. One is talk to the mayor about the possibility of a hazardous waste pickup, which we have done every 2 years for the past 4 years. And so it's time to start planning that again if it's something that the city is going to do again.
And Athens Township is going to participate, isn't it?
They discussed it last year. They had the money last year. I have yet to talk to Dick Shaw about any of what their budget looks like this year.
Okay.
They expressed an interest to combine with us, so it would be the city and the township. I thought that was a good idea. I mean, if we can bring one township at a time, that's okay by me too.
It will only take 14 years, but that's okay.
Little by little.
We don't have a time yet. We're working.
We're attempting to have it be that Saturday of the spring cleanup week, so it'd be
That's what we did last year, wasn't
April 30th.
Okay.
And
So we can count on that, you think? Pretty close?
we can count on having a household hazardous waste pickup, the date and the venue.
Okay.
We're waiting on the contracting entity. Athens Hawking Recycling actually contracts directly with them to come down here and give us their proposal so we can proceed, but we should know pretty soon.
Good.
it? And just for general information, this is for pickup of tires, batteries, household chemicals,
E-waste too last time, if you remember.
e-waste as well.
Oh, yeah, e-waste was good.
What else was there? Paints, or organic versus, I think waste versus organic.
Yeah, just listen.
Solids.
Very good. Very much appreciated by the citizens.
I have heard good feedback on it as well.
Absolutely.
The second item, and we're not ready for a discussion on this yet, but our contract with AEP for allowing them to use our right-of-way for lines and installation of their power lines and maintenance is up for renewal. The Shade Tree Commission had it on the agenda last week, and there's Ron Lucas, the Assistant Service Safety Director, is working very closely with the Shade Tree Commission on this because this contract, we're hoping, due to citizen complaints over the years on tree trimming practices, to include some guidelines in the contract. And so that's being discussed. If anyone has specific questions about that, in the immediate future, contact the Shade Tree Commission or Ron Lucas, I assume would be okay as well. We don't have the details on what this will look like yet, but just an attempt to try to get more of a grasp on on their trimming in the right-of-way at least.
Yeah, last year, 25 years ago, was pretty generic.
Yeah.
I think right now we're trying to put in some kind of practices in terms of tree trimming practices, informing the adjacent property owner practices.
Tree replacement, if they have to completely devastate a tree, I think that would be good as part of it.
So what was discussed at the Shade Tree Commission was, and I won't go into the details too much, but having a list ahead of time of what trees were going to be worked on, making sure that they were, whoever was working on them was supervised by a certified tree trimmer, using some industry standards, and then also having a replacement policy if they don't follow industry standards and end up damaging a tree due to negligent trimming, or if they remove trees from the public right-of-way that aren't, that were not part of the plan that the city had ahead of time. So part of that is in there. And
Yeah, we had a discussion a while ago, and I remember it got down, I think Paul may remember, to industry standards, and ours were too generic. And so with those tighter standards, I'm sure the Shade Tree Commission knows, because they were really frustrated. I think that'll make, I kept thinking, 2012, that's when it's going to happen, right?
actually, this summer.
This summer.
Is when it has to be replaced by.
Okay, well, I have one question that's my own personal hobby horse, so I'll ask it quickly, because I know time is marching on. But one thing I would like to see is some rationalization of how the charges, and I'm thinking, it was always hard fought, the number of streetlights and where they were, and it seemed like it was always an issue, maybe more streetlights in the closer neighborhood. But we've added streetlights, and I'd like to know what the relationship is between the number in the contract and the ones we've added that aren't exactly contract-based. You know, the difference would be the design of the light, just generic streetlights versus all the fancy-dancy ones we have around. And I'd like to know, what the costs are, because that's a cost that maybe in the future we could look at, not in favor of turning them off, but I do remember in 1975, every other light was off.
And that is important to look at. That's not part of this contract.
It's not going to be part of this contract?
The light is a separate contract by itself.
Yeah.
But I'd like to really know, because I think, I don't know if we're
That would be
paying
good to
more.
look
Okay.
Are you talking about the unmetered lights?
Yes, versus the
Okay,
metered
and what do you want
lights.
to know about them?
Well, you were on council enough to know that it's a contentious issue. People want a street light, or they don't want it in front of their house, especially those people that walk around at 3 in the morning. And so I was wondering, if we're paying the same amount of money, are we putting fancy-dancy lights on where we really need light for protection of individuals? Because there's only so much money, and, so the fancy ones are wonderful, the ambiance is good, but I want to know if the basic safety needs of the student body are being met by our
Most of the
lights.
fancy ones are ours. Anything over above the generic light is ours. The ones on Court Street are ours. The ones, I believe, on the roundabout and the bridge are now ours.
Right, that's exactly the point.
So what are you asking?
Let's get some, if we have a contract with about X number of lights, we probably don't have our full contract out since we've retired those, and maybe we could put up more lights in places where,
We did add one to Jeff Hill, but that's only one of many.
yeah.
Okay, we'll check on
Some
that.
kind, we had a list, and it was
I remember
really
had a list.
contentious about who was going to get the next light.
As far as I know, nobody ever got any next lights. It was always
They
talked
did,
about.
there were a few. All right, thank you very much. I'll look forward to that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. And is there any miscellaneous that I need to
Can we
address?
talk about fracking sometime in the future, and Christine Hughes' thing about
Tomorrow
exploring
night,
the
tonight, the Gasland 3, they think at
Okay.
9 o'clock. You got 40 minutes.
Oh, good, we'll get out of here now, we'll go watch that.
Did you see that? That's a depressing little movie.
Yeah, I've seen enough of it to know that, especially the movement of the brine into accepting that. That's something that I think we need to talk about. That was from the town hall meeting, and I thought, what's that about? And then I found out.
Would be a good issue for us to discuss soon.
Are we done?
We're done.
That's
He's
it
got
for
to
the
adjourn.
Environment Committee. We're adjourned. That adjourns the entire meeting.